So just like with our double angle, there are times when we get into more complex mathematics, when we get into integration and other calculations with our trig functions, there are times where it's easier to have a sum of trig functions versus a product of trig functions, or vice versa. So in this very short section, we're going to look at how can we transform a product of sines and cosines into a sum of sines and cosines. So let me just take a look at the formulas. These are called our product to sum formulas. So for the first one, let's suppose I took sine alpha times sine beta. Now we cannot write that as sine squared because they are two different angles. Remember, to write something as squared, the angle must be the same. So in this case, we could rewrite this as 1/2 cosine alpha minus beta minus cosine alpha plus beta. Now I know it looks way more complicated than the original sine alpha times sine beta, but often when you have a product, it creates difficulties with integration and other types of operations. So cosine alpha times cosine beta simply becomes 1/2 cosine alpha minus beta plus cosine alpha plus beta. And these all come from combinations of our sum and difference formulas. You can kind of see that if I took cosine alpha minus beta minus cosine alpha plus beta, I would actually be left with the sine alpha, sine beta. So these again come with combining various sum and difference formulas. So let's continue. What if I had sine alpha cosine beta? Well, as you can imagine, if you think back to your sum and difference formulas, only sine gives you products of sine and cosine. So in that case, it would be 1/2 sine alpha plus beta plus sine alpha minus beta. And again, you do not need to memorize these. They will be given to you on a sheet. You just got to be able to kind of use them, manipulate them. And then, of course, cosine alpha times sine beta is also a version of sine. It's 1/2 sine alpha plus beta minus sine alpha minus beta. So again, just found by doing different combinations of our sum and difference formulas. So what are we going to do? You just got to be able to follow the formula. So for example, if you were asked to write sine 4x cosine x as a sum or difference, you just need to follow the pattern. So what is that going to look like? Well, the first thing you're going to do is of course, identify your alpha and beta. Alpha is 4x and beta is x. It makes it easier as you're following the formula. Now look for the appropriate product above that sine times cosine. It's going to be this one right here. So we write it as 1/2. Now be careful. I want alpha minus beta. That's 4x minus x. 4x plus x. I don't know why I said minus. I added them plus. I'm not sure why I did that. And then here I want 4x minus x. So 3x. You might think, well, that's kind of a bit simplistic. And it is. And, that is simply, 1/2 sine 5x minus sine 3x. You cannot combine. I apologize. Again, I was using the, I should have highlighted the formula I was using. It's really easy to mess up, so please make sure you follow the correct formula. I don't know why I wrote the minuses, so make sure you do that. So you get 1/2 sine 5x plus sine 3x. You cannot combine them together. That is not sine of 8x. Okay, it's like adding an x and a y together. You cannot bring them together. So it just stays like that, and that is your answer. Do be careful though. Let me make one little change and switch the alpha and the beta. Now alpha equals x and beta equals 4x. Let me show you how that changes it. And I'll write this one out. So the first part's fine. It's x plus 4x minus sine. But then it becomes x minus 4x. So you got to be careful if you were to have any negatives here. So again, we have sine 5x plus sine negative 3x. Okay, you need to apply your even odd functions to your sine and cosine. So you got to think about it for a minute and recall that sine is actually an odd function. So when you have a minus for sine, it does indeed become okay? And it does move out front. So just be careful when you have negatives. Cosines would be very different. So for example, cosine of x times cosine of 4x. Come up here. So it's this one. Now cosine. It's alpha minus beta, alpha plus beta. So it's cosine alpha minus beta plus, let's double check, cosine alpha minus beta plus cosine alpha plus beta. Cosine of negative 3x okay, cosine is an even function. So what does that mean? Because cosine is an even function, that's my answer. Cosine of negative 3x is exactly the same as cosine of 3x. So you just do need to be careful when applying these product to sum rules is to use the appropriate even odd identities if they come up. Okay? That's all you need to do with them. Just please be careful, because if you try to combine this into cosine 8x, you will lose points on the test. That is your final answer, and that's exactly as it stays.